Hey y'all, it's Amanda and this is my Texas Zone 8 garden, and before we dive in, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share this with a fellow gardening friend. Okay, so I recently did a video where I was at Homegrown Plants in Farmersville and I chose several pollinator friendly perennials from my friend Angela, who is setting up a children's garden at a local school. And I wanted to donate some plants for her, so we ended up going shopping and picking out some of those, which was really fun. But it got me to thinking that it would be really good to share a list of my favorite pollinator friendly perennials for this Texas Zone 8 area. Now, these are the best, tough, most beautiful perennials for me that pollinators love and that thrive in Texas Zone 8. And if you want more pollinators in your garden, but don't want high maintenance plants, these are definitely plants for you. They're true perennial faves for this particular area. And I'm currently obsessed with pollinators in the garden. Fall is a big time of year for pollinators in the garden. There's butterflies everywhere, bumblebees everywhere, because our weather is finally cooled off just a touch. And so they are out all the time. And it brings me so much peace to watch them flit from flower to flower. These plants, they handle our heat, they keep coming back every year, and they feed the bees, butterflies, and hummingbirds all season long. Now, there are tons of plants in my gardens that are pollinator friendly. I really broke it down. I narrowed it down to 8 that I felt very confident about, and that if these were the only plants I could have, these are the ones I would choose. So when we're going over these plants today, we're going to focus on their appearance. We're going to talk about their height and spread. We're going to talk about their sun and water needs, their hardiness. Then we're going to focus on a few pollinator notes, specifically what it does for pollinators and why it's one of my favorites. So starting with the orange pill cestrum, which is actually one I kind of happened to fall into a couple of years ago. I bought it at the end of the season on clearance and I was like, let me just give it a whirl. And it has been one of my favorite pollinator plants to have. So for its appearance, it is a tropical shrub that can be trained in tree form with clusters of bright golden orange tubular flowers that smell amazing. Its height and spread is about 6 to 8 feet tall by 6 to 4 feet wide. I will say that it dies down to the ground for me every year, and so it never gets to like the 6 to 8 foot tall range because it dies all the way back down and then produces all the way new growth. I think that if it overwintered a little better and grew off of its old growth, it could get to that 6 to 8 foot range. For sun and water needs, it requires full sun to part shade, low to moderate water once established. Mine is in full sun all day long. Its hardiness, it's hardy in zones 7B through 10. In regards to pollinator notes, it's a hummingbird favorite and also draws butterflies, and it is right outside my main window of my living room, and I see hummingbirds there all the time, especially in the early mornings. Absolutely love it. Why it's a favorite of mine, it blooms repeatedly spring through fall, very tough once established, and it adds a cheerful pop of color because it's kind of like this really citrusy, pale tangerine color that I think looks great. And this one was really a surprise to me. I didn't think that I was going to love it as much as I do. I think I planted it in an area that's not the best place for it, but it's fine because I can see it from the window. I can see the hummingbirds, which is why I planted it there. I also have had to cut it back throughout the season. It puts off multiple branches every year, and sometimes the branches get really top heavy and fall over, and I've cut those back and the plant just keeps going and going. So it really hasn't had any issues at all so far. Okay, next on my list is Caryopteris, and I have it both in purple and pink. And this is one that I had seen on other YouTube channels, and it's always covered in bumblebees. And so I hunted for it. I don't typically see it in my area until the fall. Like right now, I see it in a lot of different places. Specifically, if you want it, it's currently at Covington's nursery in our area. However, I have bought a couple of varieties from the Collin County Master Gardeners Association when they do their kind of like plant convention sale thing earlier. It's like a garden convention thing at the beginning of the year. And I bought a couple of plants from there and they've worked out great. For its appearance, it's a compact deciduous shrub with gray-green aromatic foliage and clusters of vivid purple or pink flowers in late summer and fall. And it's stunning, very unique, interesting flowers and shape. Its height and spread is 2 to 3 feet tall by 2 to 3 feet wide. For sun and water needs, it requires full sun, well-draining soil, and is very drought tolerant. Hardiness, it's hardy zones 5 through 9. Pollinator notes, it is a bee magnet. It is covered with pollinators when it blooms, also attracts butterflies. But the number of bumblebees, I can walk over that plant at any given time at this time of the year when it's blooming and it's covered with at least a dozen bees. It's absolutely beautiful, and it just has a general buzz sound to it because it attracts so many bees, which is very cool. Why it's a favorite, it fills the late summer color gap. Absolutely. It blooms at a time of the year where there's not a lot of stuff blooming. It blooms during the hottest part of August. It's very low maintenance and pairs well with ornamental grasses and coneflowers. And I would like to have more of it in my garden because it's absolutely stunning. I find that the pink variety blooms about 4 weeks earlier than the purple variety. My pink variety has been blooming for quite a while, and my purple variety that's out on the side is just now getting to the point where it's starting to bloom, which I like that they're not at the same time because I get two massive focal points at different times of the year. Okay, next on my list is Texas rock rose, which used to be one of my least favorite plants, and now it is one of my most favorite plants. We change as gardeners, but I absolutely love the wildness of it and how it's just such a trooper at the hottest times of the year. For its appearance, it has a small shrub with hibiscus-like pink blooms that open in the morning and close by late afternoon. And the pink is such a clear, crisp, beautiful pink, about a medium pink. And it's absolutely lovely. And its flowers are just these little bitty jewels that look like little miniature hibiscus. Absolutely gorgeous. Its height and spread is about 2 to 3 feet tall and wide. I disagree with those. Those are what the average numbers. Mine gets up to 5 feet tall and wide, and it really stretches big, long, arching branches that I trim back multiple times during the season, and it just grows right back, and it does great with the trimming. For sun and water needs, it requires full sun to light shade, very drought tolerant. Mine is in an area that doesn't get a lot of water, and it does great. Hardiness, it's hardy in zones 7 through 9, so really only for the warmer zones, which is very exciting. But I think it's lovely because I definitely think it goes with those southern styles that you might see. It looks like it belongs in Texas. It looks drought tolerant, that should be growing in a prairie kind of feel, which is pretty cool. Pollinator notes, it's loved by butterflies and native bees, and an occasional hummingbird visits. I see a ton of butterflies on it and a ton of bees on it. I've never seen a hummingbird on mine. Very specifically, it's the I think it's called the American painted lady butterfly. It's mostly orange with some brown markings. They absolutely love it, and they hang out on that plant all the time. Why it's a favorite, it blooms from late spring through fall, thrives in poor soils, and recedes lightly for a naturalized look. It does recede, but it's very easy to pull up if you have it. And when it recedes, each plant might recede to 2 or 3 little seedlings around it. They pull up super easily. It does bloom late spring all the way through until we get a frost, which I really love because that bright pink color just really helps offset the heat during the summer, which I think is really great. Okay, next on my list is Mexican sagebush, and this is a plant that I have grown, yet I pulled it out not too long ago because I didn't have it in the right place and I didn't have a good place to go put it. But I will be adding it back into my garden in the back because it takes a really long time to produce its flowers, but it's kind of worth the wait. So for the appearance, it has tall arching stems with fuzzy, velvety purple and white flowers that look stunning in mass plantings. And it is absolutely beautiful and gorgeous and smells wonderful. Height and spread, it's about 3 to 4 feet tall and wide, and I definitely would agree with that. For sun and water needs, it's full sun, moderate water, and very drought tolerant once established. And I am going to be putting it in one of my newer back garden that doesn't get as much moisture. So hopefully it will do well there. Hardiness, it's hardy in zones 8 through 10. And pollinator notes, it's a late season nectar source, and it takes a long time for this to bloom. It dies all the way to the ground over the winter and comes back and literally starts producing leaves in March, and we do not get blooms until October. It takes so long to produce the blooms. But once it starts producing, it's absolutely gorgeous. Hummingbirds flock to it in the fall. They absolutely love it, along with bees and butterflies as well. And its velvety flowers make for really great cut flowers. Some of my favorite pictures that I have of me when I first started getting prepped for this YouTube channel is me with this massive bundle of Mexican sagebush in my hand, and it's absolutely stunning. Absolutely love it. So great for, you know, a nectar source for pollinators, but also really great as a cut flower, which is great. One of the big things to remember is that it takes a very long time to actually produce its flowers. Now, why it's a favorite, it adds bold fall color, pairs beautifully with ornamental grasses, and is deer resistant. The deer don't usually like any kind of the sage family because of the strong scent. Okay, next on my list is Black-Eyed Susan, and this is a plant that has grown on me over the years. I didn't love it as much in the beginning, and now I'm obsessed with it. I have it in multiple places in my garden. And it, once again, is one of those flowers at the time of the year where nothing else is going. It is just a workhorse and just doing beautifully. So its appearance is cheerful daisy-like blooms with golden petals and dark brown centers, and it comes in wide varieties. Just kind of really talking about Black-Eyed Susan in general. Its height and spread is 1 to 3 feet tall by 1 to 2 feet wide. Sun and water needs, it requires full sun, average water, but it is fairly drought tolerant once established. And a lot of the ones that I've had in my garden, I've had for at least 4 years. Hardiness, it's hardy in zones 3 through 9. However, it can be considered a short-lived perennial but reseeds easily, and I have had mine reseed. It's very easy to dig up the seedlings and move them to wherever you want, or just pull them up and, you know, get rid of them if you don't want any more in your garden. In regards to pollinator notes, it's loved by bees and butterflies, and later by seed-eating birds like finches. So all of my Black-Eyed Susan have finished producing. They're not blooming anymore at this point in time. But I left all of the flowers in place. So now they've all turned to seed heads. And so now the birds fly by and peck at the seed heads and feed themselves, which I really love. The structure is kind of, at this point in time, it's kind of like brown and dried and not as pretty. But I think it's worth it to leave it in there so that those birds and such can utilize that source of food. Why it's a favorite, it's a long blooming season from summer to fall, and it's an extremely tough plant. I have divided mine multiple times, and it does great and just takes on wherever I end up planting it. So it's lovely and a really great, I think, starter gardener kind of thing. I think it's a plant that's tried and true that can take a beating, and so for beginner gardeners, I think it's a good choice for you. Okay, next on my list is autumn sage, also known as Salvia greggi. And I actually haven't planted autumn sage, Salvia greggi, in a long time. And I think it's because I have so much beautiful blooms earlier on in the season in the spring that I don't need as much color. And I think Salvia greggi is an opportunity for a lot of earlier spring color. Now, it can be cut back and reproduced multiple times. But I definitely think I need to get it back into my garden because it's such a great pollinator plant. So its appearance is bushy, semi-woody perennial with bright red, pink, purple, and coral tubular flowers. It comes in a ton of different varieties of colors. Every time I go in the spring, Salvia greggi, there's like 15 different options of colors, which is really exciting. Its height and spread is about 2 to 3 feet tall and wide. Sun and water needs, it requires full sun, very drought tolerant once established as well. Its hardiness, it's hardy in zones 7 through 10. In regards to pollinator notes, hummingbirds, bees, and butterflies adore the nectar-rich plant. I also think it does really well if you do a part season cutback, like cut it back by half once it gives you a flush of blooms, and it will reproduce another flush of blooms, which is great. Why it's a favorite of mine, blooms spring through frost. It has easy care, and it's perfect for hot, dry gardens, especially if you have anything that's facing west and it's just going to get brutal sun. This is definitely a plant to utilize in that location and still get a lot of beautiful color and, of course, pollinators. Okay, next on my list is another sage. It's mealy blue sage, and I love this plant for specifically its height and cottage garden styling, which I love. It's so beautiful. Its appearance is tall spikes of true blue or violet blue flowers rising above lance-shaped gray-green foliage. It's such a romantic looking plant in my opinion. Its height and spread is about 1 to 3 feet tall by 1 to 2 feet wide. Most of mine usually hit the 3 feet range, and I love it for back of the gardens because I think it fills in the space really nicely. For sun and water needs, it's full sun to moderate water, and hardiness, it's hardy in zones 8 through 10. However, it is a tender perennial, often grown as an annual, and I have had it come back multiple times, but it really depends on where it is. Is it in a protected area that's just not going to get as much of the colder wind during the winter? Then yes, it's going to come back. If it's wide out in the open or in a container that's going to be full exposure to all the winter temps and such, it doesn't come back. So really kind of think about that when you're placing it in your garden. Pollinator notes, bees and butterflies are drawn to the long-lasting blooms, and hummingbirds often visit it too. I don't see hummingbirds visiting mine. It's typically mostly covered with lots of bees and a few butterflies. Once again, those American painted lady butterflies seem to flock to it. And I really like the contrast of their orange wings with these beautiful blue purple blooms. It's absolutely lovely. Why it's a favorite of mine, it's extremely heat tolerant and blooms all summer through fall. You do have to give it a cut back at one point in order to encourage a new flush of blooms. Okay, next on my list is goldenrod and solidago, which is in full bloom in my garden right now. It is definitely a late season bloomer. Its appearance is upright clumps topped with sprays of bright golden yellow flowers in late summer and fall. The variety I currently have is fireworks, and it looks like it just exploded yellow blooms everywhere. Absolutely gorgeous. Its height and spread is 2 to 4 feet tall by 1 to 3 feet wide. It is a large and charge plant. I have it planted at the base of my Don Juan climbing roses. Sun and water needs, it's full sun to part shade, low to water needs. It's hardy in zones 3 through 9. In regards to pollinator notes, it's a powerhouse for pollinators and supports dozens of native bees and beneficial insects. It is definitely a hub. It is a buzzing hub of insects when it's in bloom. They're all over it. That bright yellow they're drawn to, and I guess the flowers are small enough that it works with a wide variety of insects, which I think is pretty cool. Why it's a favorite of mine, one of the best late season nectar sources, pairs well with purple fall bloomers like asters and Mexican bush sage. It's that yellow color pairs really well with purple. I like it for its wild look. I think is absolutely beautiful. It kind of just spreads out in the space that it's in. It takes up that whole space, which is nice. It dies all the way back to the ground and spends all season growing back, and then of course finally blooms in early fall. Yeah, because it's blooming right now. So it's a really beautiful and very unusual one that I don't typically see in a lot of gardens, but a great native to my area. And then I specifically like the fireworks variety just because of the way it looks like explosions of flowers. Very unique and different. Okay, so those are my 8 plants. Now, I narrowed it down to this. I have lots of plants that are great pollinators in the garden, some annuals, some perennials. These are the ones that are like tried and true, and that if I only had the options, these would be the ones that I would choose. I constantly pull things out and try different things, move things around quite frequently. So there are a few that I don't currently have in my garden, but I have grown them in the past, and I plan on growing them again in the future. Okay, a few design tips for a pollinator garden, because I think that's something that we need to consider when and if you're wanting to create a space or a haven for pollinators. First, you want to plant in drifts so pollinators can easily forage. You don't want to have your pollinator plants really far apart from each other. You want to plant them almost like this little tiny ecosystem. So a drift is several pollinator friendly plants all together so that the insects can just bounce from plant to plant and they don't have to fly really far distances. Next, you want to mix early, mid, and late season bloomers. So we talked a lot through all of these. Some of these are early season. A lot of these are late season because that's my big focus right now, and that's what I'm seeing in my garden. And late season bloomers is something that I've really been working on to improve in my garden. because in the past I've had mostly early season and everything dies by July, and then I'm just done until the next spring. So I've worked really hard to put a lot of different late bloomer plants in my garden, so I have some beautiful color and texture in late summer into fall. But really make sure that you're giving your pollinators the early, the mid, and the late nectar sources. And then finally, create no spray areas to protect pollinators. So my garden's a no spray garden anyway. The most I'll do is utilize an insecticidal soap on a very specific area, and it's usually for spider mites. After that, it's survival of the fittest for me, but I don't do massive sprays on any of my gardens. However, if you're someone who does spray in your garden, but you want pollinators in your garden, you need to create a space that's a no spray space. You just don't ever spray that garden, right? So that gives the insects an opportunity to be in a really safe haven where they don't have to worry about getting killed, and you don't have to worry about killing them off. But yeah, definitely create an area, you know, especially if you're an HOA that's like really specific about stuff and you have to maintain a certain look. Go ahead and create in a back portion of your back garden, create a no spray area that you don't really have to spend a lot of maintenance on, spend time spraying or anything like that, and just let the plants grow wild and let the pollinators have a blast out there. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I was inspired after talking to Angela about pollinator plants, and then one of the things I'm trying to do is find more peace in my garden, and that definitely, I get that from pollinators quite frequently. I love to just go watch little bumblebees or butterflies just do their business and enjoy life, and I like to just chill out there and watch. And so that's why I thought this would be a really fun opportunity to talk about these plants that I really enjoy for pollinator friendly gardens. All right, you all, I'm sure I missed some. So drop in the comments, let me know which plants you like that are extremely pollinator friendly. Be sure to drop your zone too, so we know what area you're in. I think that is really important as well, because what works well in zone 5 is not going to work as well in zone 8 typically. So definitely make sure we know what your zone is. All right, you all, as always, make sure you like and comment on the video. Every time you like and comment, it helps grow the video and my channel so much. And if you don't feel comfortable leaving a comment, just drop me an emoji below, letting me know that you made it to the end of the video and you say hi. And be sure to check me out in my Patreon community. This video is not coming out till the next day, but tonight is our live. I have been looking forward to it for 2 weeks now. I feel like I want to do a live every week because 2 weeks feels like too long. So tonight we're going to be going through all the seeds that I got from Seed Therapy, chatting about each of the varieties of seeds, why I got them, and discussing if anybody else is going to be growing them, what seeds they're going to be working on. The next week, the first week in October, we will have an additional live for my Sprout Squad and Bloom Buddy levels. That live we will be planning out and talking about our gardens for October. I think which will be really fun, because I need a better plan. September ended up being a life disaster, so I just really didn't accomplish what I wanted to accomplish, but I look forward to sitting down with everybody, the patrons, and just kind of chatting with that. So if you're interested in checking out the Patreon community, there is a link in the video description below. Once again, as always, she's a mad gardener or a decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.